The great hall on Nexus Prime was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Tall blue Zephyrians stood next to scaled Corax warriors. Small gray Altarians sat quietly in their floating chairs. At the center of it all, Jake Morrison stood alone. At the human podium, Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Council for 10 years. Today might be his last day in that job. "The motion has been called," announced the Zephyrian speaker. Her voice echoed through the massive chamber. All humans must leave council space within 1 standard year. Jake felt his heart sink. This was really happening. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice steady despite his fear. "Humanity has been part of this council for 50 years. We have fought beside you. We have died for you. Why are you doing this now?" General Corax of the Corax Federation stood up. His red scales gleamed under the lights. "Because humans are too violent," he said loudly. "You solve every problem with war. You make the galaxy unsafe." "That's not true," Jake replied. "Yes, we fight when we must. But we also protect, we explore. We discover new worlds and share them with everyone." A Zephyrian delegate raised her hand. "Human colonies have the highest crime rates. Human ships carry the most weapons. Human soldiers start fights in every port." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew some of it was true. Humans were different from other species. They were quicker to anger, faster to fight. But they were also quicker to help, faster to sacrifice for others. "We are what we are," Jake said simply. "But we are your allies. No more," said the speaker. "The vote is final. Humans will leave all council worlds and colonies. You have won." Year. The hall erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others looked worried. In the back, Dr. Kev Chan of Altair shook his head sadly. 3 months later, Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Hope. Through the viewing window, she could see Earth growing smaller behind them. Around her ship, hundreds of other vessels carried millions of humans away from their homes. Lisa was young for a captain, only 35, but she had volunteered to lead the evacuation fleet. Someone had to make sure families stayed together. Someone had to keep people calm. "Captain," called her communications officer, "we're getting messages from the colonies." "The last groups are boarding their ships now," Lisa nodded. 12 star systems, 47 worlds, all being abandoned because the galaxy was afraid of humanity. "Any word from the council worlds?" she asked. "Some species are protesting the decision, the Altarians especially. But the Zephyrians and Corax are making sure we leave." Lisa sighed. She had friends among the other species, good people who would miss humanity. But the decision was made by fear, not friendship. On the science vessel Horizon, Dr. Kev Chun worked alone in his lab. The small Altarian had gray skin and large black eyes. He was old, even for his long-lived species. Old enough to remember the stories his grandfather told Chun, pulled up ancient files on his computer. Records that were thousands of years old. His hands shook as he read them again. Long ago, another species had been cast out of the galaxy. The council of that time called them too aggressive, too dangerous. Within 50 years, something terrible came from the dark spaces between galaxies. Something hungry. The aggressive species might have stopped it, but they were gone. The galaxy barely survived. Sean had tried to warn the current council, but no one listened. They were too proud, too sure of themselves. He activated his personal communicator and sent a message to Jake Morrison. "My friend," he said quietly, "I fear we have made a terrible mistake. Watch the dark spaces. Something may be coming." Admiral Pete Collins was the last human to leave council space. His ship, the Independence, waited at the border while the final transport ships crossed over. Pete was 50 years old and had spent his whole life in the Space Navy. This felt like defeat. "Admiral," his aide said, "all civilian ships are across the border. We're the last ones." Pete looked at the scanner. Behind them lay the galaxy they had called home. Ahead was empty space and uncertainty. "Send one final message to the Council," Pete ordered. "What should it say, sir?" Pete thought for a moment. "Tell them this. You are making a mistake. We were your shield, and you are throwing it away. When the darkness comes, remember that you chose this." The message was sent. The Independents crossed the border. Humanity was alone. On Nexus Prime, the celebration lasted for days, as Zephyrians threw parties. The Corax drank to their victory. Peace had come to the galaxy, they said. The violent humans were gone forever. Only a few beings, like Dr. Chun, sat quietly and worried. They remembered the old stories. They knew that in the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient things still moved. Things that had been held back by aggressive species with strong weapons and stronger wills. But those voices were few, and they were not heard over the sound of celebration. In the deep void beyond the galaxy's edge, something stirred. Something that had been waiting for very long time. The shield was gone. The path was clear. Soon it would be time to feed again. 5 years had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was peaceful and rich. Trade ships moved freely between worlds without fear of human pirates or human wars. The Corax Federation had taken over 3 former human colonies. The Zephyrians built beautiful cities where human settlements once stood. On Nexus Prime, Speaker Zelia looked out at the busy spaceport. Ships from dozens of species came and went. The economy was stronger than ever. The Council was right, she told her aide. Without the humans, we have found true peace. Her aide, a young Zephyrian named Kalo, nodded. But deep down, he sometimes wondered where the humans had gone. The galaxy was big, but space beyond it was bigger. What were they doing out there? Far from the capital, strange things were happening. On the rim worlds at the edge of galaxy, miners and farmers began to disappear. Whole work crews would vanish overnight. Ships would send distress signals, then go silent. Dr. Amy Foster was one of the few people who noticed the pattern. She worked as a scientist on Kepler 442b, a farming world near the galactic rim. Amy was a human who had been allowed to stay because she was married to a Corax officer. She was one of only a few hundred humans left in council space. "Look at these reports," Amy told her husband, Captain Vex. She showed him her computer screen. 7 mining operations have gone dark in the past month. 12 ships are missing. Something is wrong. Vex was a good Corax, but like most of his species, he was not worried. "Pirates," he said simply. "Or equipment failure. The rim is dangerous." "This is different," Amy insisted. "The ships disappear completely. No wreckage, no survivors. And look at this." She pointed to a map. "All the disappearances are in the same area, near the void regions." The void regions were dark spaces between the galaxy's spiral arms. No stars, no planets, just empty space. Most species avoided them. "You worry too much," Vex said, touching his wife's shoulder. "The humans are gone. The galaxy is safe." But Amy kept studying the reports. She sent warnings to the colonial government, but no one listened. General Vex, the local military commander, called her paranoid. Meanwhile, in the dark space beyond the galaxy, humanity was busy. Colonel Ryan Brooks stood in the command center of Outpost 7, watching construction reports scroll across his screen. Ryan was 42 years old, with short brown hair and steady hands. He had been an engineer before the exile. Now he was helping build something much bigger than anyone in the galaxy could imagine. "How many shipyards are operational?" he asked his assistant. 15 major yards, sir. 30 smaller ones. We've completed over 2,000 new vessels in the past 3 years. Ryan nodded. The human exodus had not been a defeat. It had been a strategic retreat. While the galaxy celebrated, humans had been building. They had found rogue planets in the dark, between galaxies, and turned them into hidden bases. "What about weapons research?" Ryan asked. "Dr. Adams reports major breakthroughs. The new plasma cannons are 50% more powerful than anything the Council has. And the shield technology ... double quotes." "Good," Ryan interrupted. "Keep working. We may need everything soon." "Sir, do you really think something is coming?" Ryan thought about Dr. Chon's warning from 5 years ago. The old Altarian had risked his career to send that message. "I hope not," Ryan said quietly. "But my grandfather always said it's better to have weapons and not need them than to need weapons and not have them." Back in Council space, Captain Nina Walsh commanded the research ship Defiant. Nina was not human. She was Terran from a human colony that had declared independence before the exile. This made her technically not subject to the ban, though few people made that distinction. Nina had spent her life studying space communications. She knew how to find signals that others missed. Recently, her instruments had been picking up something strange. "Computer, play the signal again," she said to her ship's AI. The bridge filled with a low, pulsing sound. It was unlike anything in the galactic database. The rhythm was too regular to be natural, but too alien to be from any known species. "Analysis?" Nina asked. "Signal originates from beyond the galactic rim," the computer replied. "Estimated distance, 40 to 60,000 light-years. Pattern suggests artificial origin." Nina felt a chill. 60,000 light-years was far. Beyond Council space. Far beyond anywhere life was supposed to exist. "How long have you been detecting this signal?" "Intermittently for 18 months. Frequency and strength have been increasing." Nina stared at the star chart. Something was out there. Something was coming closer. On Altair, Dr. Chun worked in his private study. He was old now, very old, and his health was failing. But his mind was still sharp. He had spent 5 years studying the ancient archives, learning everything he could about the old threat. The records were incomplete, but the pattern was clear. Every few thousand years, something came from the dark spaces, something that consumed entire worlds. The ancient species called them the Devourers. Chun activated his communicator and tried once again to contact the Council. "This is Dr. Chun of Altair. I request an urgent meeting with the Defense Committee." "Dr. Chun," came the reply, "you have requested this meeting 17 times in the past year. The committee does not wish to hear about ancient myths." "They are not myths," Chun said desperately. "The signs are all there. Ships disappearing. Strange signals from the void. We need to contact the humans. We need their help. The humans are gone, Doctor, and we are better for it. Please do not contact us again about this matter." The communication ended. Chun sat alone in his study, surrounded by ancient warnings that no one would hear. That night, on a mining platform at the very edge of the galaxy, worker Bill Santos was finishing his shift. Bill was one of the few humans still working in Council space, employed by a company that had overlooked his species in their hiring records. "Another quiet night," Bill told his partner, "a Zephyrian named Olex." "Too quiet," Olex replied. "Haven't seen a trade ship in weeks." Bill nodded. The rim had been unusually empty lately. Ships were avoiding this area, though no one could say why. "Bill," Olex said suddenly, "look at the scanner." Bill turned to the detection screen. Something was there. Something big. "That can't be right," Bill said. "It shows a ship 50 kilometers long." "Run a diagnostic," Oleg suggested. But before Bill could touch the controls, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. "What happened?" Oleg asked. Bill looked at the scanner again. The large object was gone. In its place were dozens of smaller contacts, moving fast toward their platform. "Send a distress signal," Bill ordered. Oleg tried, but the communication system was dead. All of it. Even the backup transmitters. Through the observation window, they saw lights in the darkness. Not the clean white light of normal ships, but a sickly green glow that hurt to look at. "We need to evacuate," Bill said, but it was too late. The platform shuddered as something attached to the hull. Then the sounds began, scratching, cutting, tearing. Something was coming through the walls. The last thing Bill Santos ever transmitted was a short burst on an emergency frequency. Just 3 words: "They are coming." The signal reached only one ship, Nina Walsh's research vessel. She recorded it and tried to send it to the Council, but her message was lost in the bureaucracy dot. In the dark between galaxies, ancient hunger stirred. The feast was about to begin. The first real sign of trouble came from Zarian 7. The mining world was home to 3 billion beings from dozens of species. It had the largest mining operation in the outer rim, pulling rare metals from the planet's core. Then the signal stopped. "What do you mean, stopped?" General Corex asked his communications officer. They were in the military command center on Nexus Prime. "Sir, Zarian 7 went silent 6 hours ago. All communications, all data streams, everything." Corex frowned. His red scales darkened with worry. "Equipment failure?" "Unlikely, sir. They had backup systems, emergency transmitters. Something would have gotten through. Send a patrol ship to investigate." "Already done, sir." The cruiser Vengeance should arrive in 12 hours. But when the Vengeance reached Zarian 7, Captain Tox could not believe what he saw. Or rather, what he did not see. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "I'm not detecting any life signs on the planet." "That's impossible. Run the scan again." The results were the same. Zarian 7 was empty. Not just the people. Everything was gone. The cities, the mining equipment, even the orbital stations had vanished. "What about wreckage?" Captain Tox asked. "None. Sir, it's like everything was consumed." Tox felt his blood run cold. He had never seen anything like this. "Take us closer to the planet. Full scan." What they found was worse than empty cities. The planet itself was dying. Large areas of the surface were gray and lifeless, as if something had drained all the energy from the soil itself. "Sir," the science officer called out, "I'm detecting strange energy readings from the planet's core. Something has been feeding on the planet's magnetic field." Captain Tox immediately sent a priority message to Nexus Prime. "Zarian 7 has been completely stripped. Population gone, infrastructure gone. Unknown hostile force responsible. Request immediate fleet support." The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. For the first time in 5 years, Speaker Zelia felt real fear. How is this possible? She asked General Corex, "What force could consume an entire world?" "We don't know," Corex admitted. "But our investigators found something else. Large trails in space leading toward the void regions. Whatever did this came from outside the galaxy." On her research ship, Captain Nina Walsh was tracking the same energy trails. Her instruments had detected the massive disturbance when Zarian 7 died. "Computer, analyze the energy signature," she ordered. "Energy pattern is consistent with biological consumption on a massive scale," the computer replied. "Similar patterns detected in the ancient archives dating back approximately 4,000 years." Nina's hands began to shake. "Show me those archives." The computer displayed records that were barely readable. Ancient warnings about creatures from the dark spaces. Beings that consumed entire worlds to feed their endless hunger. "The Devourers," Nina whispered. She had read about them in old stories, but thought they were myths. She immediately tried to contact the Council, but her communications were blocked. Her ship was too small, too unimportant. No one would listen to a lone researcher. So Nina did the only thing she could think of. She sent a message toward the dark space beyond the galaxy, hoping the humans were still listening. "This is Captain Nina Walsh of the research vessel Defiant. Unknown hostile force has attacked Council space. Entire worlds are being consumed. If you can hear this, we need help." The message traveled for days through empty space before it reached human listening posts. Colonel Ryan Brooks read the message 3 times before he believed it. Then he ran to find Admiral Collins. "Sir, you need to see this," Ryan said, handing. Over the datapad. Admiral Collins read the message, then looked at the energy signature analysis Nina had included. His face went pale. "Get me Dr. Adams," he ordered. "And contact all fleet commanders. We may have a problem." Dr. Lucy Adams was humanity's chief scientist in exile. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. When she saw the data from Zarian 7, she immediately ran to her computer. "Computer, access the genetic memory banks," she ordered. Genetic memory banks accessed. The genetic memory banks were humanity's greatest secret. Every human carried memories passed down through their DNA, memories of ancient battles, ancient enemies. Most people never accessed them, but scientists like Lucy knew how to unlock them. "Search for energy patterns matching this signature," Lucy said, uploading Nina's data. The computer worked for several minutes. Then it displayed results that made Lucy's blood freeze. Pattern match found. Confidence level, 97%. Pattern identified as Devourer bioship energy signature. Lucy sat down heavily. The old enemy had returned. Back in Council space, refugee ships began arriving from the outer rim. Captain Yenna of the transport ship Hope carried survivors from 3 different worlds. They came from nowhere, one survivor told the Council investigators. Huge ships, bigger than cities. They covered the sky with darkness. "What did they look like?" the investigator asked. "Like nothing I've ever seen. Not metal ships, they were alive. They had tentacles and mouths full of teeth. And they were hungry. So hungry. More refugee ships arrived with similar stories. The pattern was always the same. Massive bioships would appear without warning, consume everything on a planet, then disappear into the void. Dr. Chun finally got his meeting with the Defense Committee, but only because the crisis was too big to ignore. "Honored delegates," Chun began, his voice weak with age. "What you are facing is an ancient enemy. They are called the Devourers. They come from the space between galaxies every few thousand years. How do we stop them?" General Corax asked. Chun looked around the room sadly. "In the old days, there were warrior species who fought them. Aggressive species with powerful weapons and the will to use them. Are you saying we need the humans?" Speaker Zilia asked. "I'm saying we cast out our guardians," Chun replied. "The humans were not just warriors. They were the descendants of those who fought the Devourers before. Their aggression was not random. It was trained into them over generations." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Chun was saying. "But surely our combined fleets can handle any threat," General Corax said. Chun shook his head. "The Devourers are not just an army. They are a force of nature. They consume everything, matter, energy, even space itself. Only species who have fought them before know how to truly hurt them." "Then we contact the humans," Speaker Zilia decided. If they will answer, Chun said quietly. The Council's message was simple. To humanity, wherever you may be. The galaxy faces a threat we cannot handle alone. We request your aid. The message was sent to every known human communication frequency. Then the Council waited in the dark space beyond the galaxy. Admiral Collins read the message on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, his officers waited for his decision. Sir? His aide asked. Do we respond? Collins thought about all the humans who had died during the exile. Good people who never saw their homes again. Then he thought about the billions of beings in the galaxy who would die if the Devourers were not stopped. Send a reply, he ordered. Tell them we received their message. Tell them we are coming. But privately, Collins wondered if they would arrive in time. The Devourer fleet was already moving toward the heart of the galaxy, and they were very, very hungry. On the rim worlds, the last few human survivors watched the skies with growing fear. They knew what was coming. Their genetic memories whispered of ancient battles and terrible enemies. The Devourers were here. And this time, there might not be enough humans left to stop them. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Millions of bioships, each 1 kilometer long and powered by stolen starlight. They moved through space like a living wave of hunger, consuming everything in their path. General. Corex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet prepare for battle. The Corax Federation had the strongest military in the galaxy. 1 million warships with the best weapons and shields money could buy. All ships report ready for combat, his aide announced. Good, Corex said. We will show these creatures that the galaxy is not defenseless. The battle began at dawn on Corax Prime. The Devourer ships emerged from hyperspace like nightmares. Made real. They were not built. They were grown. Living vessels with pulsing veins and grinding teeth. Their hulls were black as space itself, and their weapons fired pure hunger. All ships open fire. Corex commanded. The Corax fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, fusion torpedoes, particle beams. The space around the Devourer ships filled with explosions and light. But when the smoke cleared, the bioships were still there. Not only undamaged, but stronger. They had absorbed the energy from the weapons and used it to grow larger. Impossible, Corex whispered. Then the Devourers fought back. Streams of darkness shot from their weapons, and wherever the darkness touched, ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been there at all. In 12 hours, the mighty Corax fleet was gone. General Corex's last message was a simple warning. They cannot be stopped by conventional weapons. May the ancestors forgive us for what we have done. The Zephyrian Empire fell next. Their beautiful crystal cities were consumed in days. The Devourer ships landed on planets like massive parasites, draining them of all life and energy. Then, they moved on, leaving dead worlds behind. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. Half the delegates were missing. Their homeworlds had already fallen. How many ships do we have left? Speaker Zilia asked. Perhaps 50,000 scattered across the core worlds, reported Admiral Nex. But, sir, conventional weapons do not work against them. Every attack just makes them stronger. What about the humans? Have they responded? Dr. Chun stood up slowly. He was very old and very tired. I have received a message. The human fleet is coming. But I fear it may be too late. How long until they arrive? 2 weeks, if they push their ships to the limit. Zilia looked around the nearly empty chamber. We may not have 2 weeks. Far from the dying core worlds, President Helen Carter stood in the command center of the human ship Retribution. Around her, the leaders of humanity debated their course of action. Why should we help them? Demanded General Nat Parker. They threw us out. They called us violent and dangerous. Let them face the consequences of their choice. President Carter was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She had been elected by the human survivors to lead them in exile. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. The right thing? General Parker laughed. Bitterly. Helen, we lost 2 million people during the exile. Good people who died in the cold of space because the galaxy didn't want us. And how many more will die if we do nothing? Carter replied, billions of innocent beings who had no say in the Council's decision. Dr. Lucy Adams entered the debate, room carrying a datapad. Her face was grim. I finished analyzing the Devourer bioships. The news is not good. She activated the main display, showing a detailed scan of a Devourer vessel. These creatures are not just hungry, they are engineered to be the perfect predators. They can absorb any form of energy and convert it to biomass. They reproduce by consuming other life forms, and they never stop growing. How did we stop them before? Carter asked. We didn't stop them, Lucy replied. According to the genetic memory records, humanity and other warrior species managed to drive them back to the void regions, but it cost us everything. Entire civilizations were sacrificed to hold the line. And now we're supposed to do it again? General Parker asked. Actually, Lucy said, pulling up another screen, we might have an advantage this time. During our exile, we've developed new technologies. Our weapons are more advanced than anything the old warriors had. Captain Steve Rodriguez, commander of the human fleet, stepped forward. He was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes. Ma'am, I've reviewed our fleet strength. We have 8,000 ships, all equipped with the new plasma weapons and quantum. Shields, but 8,000 ships against millions ... It's not about the numbers, Dr. Adams interrupted. The genetic memories contain something else. A weakness in the Devourer bioships, but we need to get close to exploit it. Very close. President Carter looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. These people had suffered so much, lost so much. She had no right to ask them to sacrifice more for the galaxy that had rejected them. We're not doing this for the Council, she said finally. We're not doing it for forgiveness or glory. We're doing it because if we don't, everyone dies, including U.S. eventually. The President is right, Captain Rodriguez said. These creatures won't stop with Council space. They'll consume the entire galaxy, then move on to the next one. This is our home too, even if we were forced to leave it. General Parker stared at the floor for a long moment. Finally, he looked up. My grandfather used to say that being human means standing up when everyone else falls down, even when they hate you for it. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would return to save the galaxy. But as the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, disturbing news arrived from the core worlds. The Devourers had reached Altair. Dr. Chun's final message was brief. They are at our door. The capital worlds will fall within days. If you are coming, come now. President Carter stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching the human fleet assemble. Ships that had been built in secret, powered by technology the galaxy had never seen. Each one crewed by people who had every reason to let the galaxy burn. Admiral Collins, she said into her communicator, are we ready? Yes, ma'am. All ships report ready for jump. Then take us home. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a galaxy that was dying. Behind them, in the hidden shipyards, more vessels continued rolling off the production lines. If the first wave failed, there would be others. But as they traveled through the dark between stars, everyone aboard knew the truth. This might be humanity's last battle. The Devourers had grown stronger during their long sleep, and the galaxy's defenders were scattered and broken. When they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council space, the first thing they saw were the refugee ships. Thousands of them, carrying the survivors of dead worlds. Ships packed with families who had lost everything. "My God," whispered Captain Rodriguez. "Look what they've done." President Carter activated the General Communication Channel. "This is President Helen Carter of the Human Federation. To all refugee ships, you are under our protection. To all devourer forces, you face the wrath of humanity. We have returned." The message spread across the galaxy faster than light. In the ruins of Nexus Prime, Speaker Zillia wept with relief. On the dying worlds of the Rim, survivors looked up at the sky with hope. But in the dark spaces between stars, something ancient and hungry sensed the approaching fleet. The Devourers remembered humanity. They remembered the pain these small creatures had caused them long ago. This time would be different. This time, they would consume everything. The Battle of Nexus Prime began at dawn. The Devourer mothership, a creature the size of a small moon, had wrapped itself around the galactic capital like a parasite. Millions of smaller bioships swarmed around it, feeding on the dying world. Below, Admiral Collins stood on the bridge of his flagship, the USV Retribution. Through the viewing screen, he could see the massive Devourer fleet. They covered space like a dark cloud, blotting out the stars. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the remaining Council ships are requesting orders." Collins activated the general channel. "This is Admiral Collins of the Human Fleet. All surviving Council forces fall back to safe distance and observe. We'll handle this." "Admiral," came a reply from a Zephyrian captain, "there are millions of them." "You only have 8,000 ships." "We know," Collins replied calmly. "All human ships, prepare for combat. Remember what we're fighting for." The human fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Each ship was equipped with quantum plasma weapons and shields that shimmered like liquid starlight. But more importantly, each ship was crewed by people who carried ancient memories in their blood. Memories of how to fight creatures that consumed. Worlds. Captain Lisa Hayes commanded the heavy cruiser New Hope. She had led the evacuation 5 years ago, and now she was leading the charge back home. "All weapons, target the smaller bioships first," she ordered. "Don't waste shots on the mothership until we clear a path." The quantum plasma cannons fired streams of pure energy that cut through space like silver lightning. But these weapons were different from the ones the Council had used. They didn't just destroy, they disrupted the Devourers' ability to absorb energy. The first wave of bioships tried to feed on the weapons fire, but instead of growing stronger, they began to dissolve. Their hulls bubbled and melted as the quantum energy tore apart their biological systems. "It's working," Lisa shouted. "All ships continue firing." But the Devourers adapted quickly. The larger bioships began releasing clouds of smaller creatures, living missiles that swarmed toward the human fleet like angry bees. Colonel Ryan Brooks, commanding the destroyer Defiance, led his squadron directly into the swarm. "All fighters, follow my lead. We're going in close." The human fighters were small and fast, designed for exactly this kind of battle. They dove between the biomissiles, firing precise shots that turned the creatures inside out. But for every one they destroyed, 10 more took its place. "Sir?" Ryan's pilot called out. "We're being overwhelmed." "Negative," Ryan replied. "We hold the line here, no matter what." The destroyer Defiance was surrounded by thousands of biomissiles. They attached themselves to the hull and began eating through the armor. Ryan watched his ship's systems fail one by one. "All hands, abandon ship," he ordered. "Sir, the escape pods won't make it through that swarm," his aide protested. Ryan smiled grimly. "Then we don't abandon ship. All power to engines." set course for the mothership. The Defiance accelerated toward the massive Devourer vessel, trailing fire and biomissiles. At the last second, Ryan activated the ship's quantum core. Overload. The explosion was visible from across the system. When the light faded, a huge wound had been torn in the mothership's side. Ryan Brooks and his crew were gone, but they had opened a path. For Ryan, Admiral Collins said quietly. Then louder, all ships follow the Defiance's path. Target, a mothership's wound. Captain Steve Rodriguez commanded the assault cruiser Liberty. He led his squadron through the gap Ryan had created, firing everything they had at the exposed interior of the mothership. Sir, his weapons officer reported, our shots are having minimal effect. The creature is healing itself. Steve looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was taking heavy casualties. They were fighting bravely, but the Devourers had too many ships. Dr. Adams, Steve called on the command channel. We need that weakness you found. Now. Dr. Lucy Adams was aboard the science vessel Discovery, analyzing the mothership's biological structure. I've found it, she announced. The creature has a central nervous cluster near its core. If we can hit it with a concentrated quantum burst ... How concentrated? Admiral Collins asked. Every ship we have, firing at the same point at the same time. That's suicide, someone protested. We'd have to get inside the creature's body cavity. Then that's what we do, Collins decided. All ships form up on my position. We're going. Lieutenant Sarah Kim commanded the escort frigate Hope's End. She was young, barely 25, but she had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. Her ship would go in first, clearing defensive systems so the larger vessels could follow. Sarah, her father's voice came over a private channel. He commanded another ship in the fleet. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Sarah replied. Someone has to go first. Might as well be me. The Hope's End dove into the mothership's wound, its quantum cannons blazing. Inside the creature was a maze of organic tunnels and chambers, all pulsing with alien life. Bioships chased Sarah's frigate through the living corridors, but she was faster and more maneuverable. Target acquired, Sarah reported. I can see the nervous cluster. It's beautiful and terrible. Get out of there, Sarah, Admiral Collins ordered. We'll take the shot. But Sarah could see something the others couldn't. The nervous cluster was protected by a bioelectric field that would deflect any shot from outside. Someone had to get closer. Negative, sir. I'm in position. Take care of my family. Sarah Kim flew her ship directly into the nervous cluster, her quantum core set to overload. The explosion tore through the mothership's brain, and the massive creature screamed across every frequency in space. The mothership began to die, its body convulsing as neural commands went haywire. The smaller bioships, suddenly cut off from their controlling intelligence, turned on each other in confusion. All ships, concentrate fire on the remaining bioships, Collins ordered. We can finish this. The battle raged for 6 more hours. Human ships sacrificed themselves to save alien refugees. Captain Tony Martinez rammed his cruiser into a bioship to prevent it from reaching an evacuation convoy. Commander Janet Torres held a defensive line until her ship's hull melted under bioacid attacks. When it was over, half the human fleet was gone, but the Devourer threat was ended. The surviving bioships fled back to the void they're controlling. Intelligence destroyed. On the ruins of Nexus Prime, the survivors gathered. Representatives from dozens of species stood in the wreckage of the Great Council Chamber. Many were crying out Dr. Chon, somehow still alive despite his great age, spoke for all of them. They came back not for glory, not for forgiveness, but because, when the darkness came, they remembered who they were meant to be. Admiral Collins stood before the assembled delegates, his uniform torn and dirty from the battle. We didn't do this for you. he said quietly. We did it because it was right. Because protecting others is what makes us human. Speaker Zelia, her beautiful blue skin scarred from the attack on her homeworld, stepped forward. The Galactic Council was wrong. We were afraid of your strength, but that strength saved us all. How can we ever repay you? By remembering, Collins replied. By never again casting out those who are different. By understanding that sometimes the galaxy needs warriors, even if you don't like what warriors have to do. The new Galactic Charter was written in the ruins of the old chamber. Its first law was simple. Never again shall the Guardians be cast out, for in our darkest hour they returned to save us all. Jake Morrison, the former ambassador who had been present at Humanities' exile, was chosen as the first human member of the new High Council. As he stood before the memorial wall, listing the names of all who had died defending the galaxy, he spoke the words that would be remembered forever. We warned them about casting us out. Now they'll never forget why we were their shield. The galaxy rebuilt slowly. Human technology helped heal the worlds damaged by the Devourers. Human engineers designed new defenses against threats from the dark spaces. And human teachers shared the ancient memories, so that future generations would know how to fight the hunger that lived between the stars. On Earth, now restored as humanity's home, children learned the story of the exile and the return. They learned that being strong sometimes meant being misunderstood. They learned that protecting others was more important than being liked. And in the dark spaces beyond the galaxy's edge, automated sensors kept watch. Because the Devourers might return someday, and when they did, humanity would be ready. Galaxy was safe. The Guardians had come home, and they would never be cast out again.